Hey gang, does YouTube need another Cold Steel SRK review, especially in the basic AUS 8 model? It probably doesn't, but I'm going to give one anyway. So this is the Cold Steel SRK. It's a pretty classic survival knife. It's called the Survival Rescue Knife. That's what the SRK stands for. This one's black painted, really. It is just paint. Black painted AUS 8, has a sort of I can't remember what Cold Steel calls this, like a Crayex handle or something like that, Grivex or something. It's a rubbery plastic handle with a fair degree, not a crazy degree, of sort of rubberiness to it. So when you press hard against this guard, you do feel it budge, and when you chop with the knife, you feel the handle twist and turn just a little bit. Nothing disconcerting, but it is definitely a rubber. So you get a 6-inch blade with a 5-inch cutting length, maybe a 5 and a little bit. This blank spot here, for some reason, I don't know why it's blank, it's certainly not a choil, but I guess it is a choke point. So it minimises the blade length just a little tiny bit, but still it's a rather big knife in hand, and definitely something aimed at sort of the one knife option, or the do-all, jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none type knife, and that really is what you get here. The main pro here with this knife is supreme durability. So the first thing I did when I got this knife for $66 from Cleaver Firearms. That's Australian dollars. Cleaver Firearms are a gun shop in Queensland that does mail order, so I hit them up. They've got some really good Cold Steel deals. I think they might be our official seller of Cold Steel in this country, so check them out. 66 bucks, I'm pretty sure that deal's still going. So being a $66 knife, I wasn't really afraid to hurt it. So the first thing I did with it, I jumped straight into battening thick, horrible, dry stumps of dry branches of wood, which is some of the stuff that has killed knives for me in the past. So I started with a modest sized bit of wood that was really hard and really dead from the actual limb that killed the Vox Rolled. And as you can see, as I run the footage, there really wasn't too many problems caused by that. I then thought bigger and got a giant, horrible gnarly which had all sorts of little sprouting branches coming off of it before I clipped them off. Horrible piece of wood, literally wavy like the ocean inside, and let's just see how it did. So yes, it survived and it did the job, but that is knife abuse, people. Don't do it to your own knives. Only do it if you're a gear reviewer and you were happy for the knife to have exploded in your hands, because it literally felt like that was going to happen for a few minutes there. That was my bum hole was going like this. It was bloody terrible, but did the job in the end. A few little scuffs and blemishes as a result. I was pretty impressed with this. I cracked on the back of this pretty hard, and that's fine. The wood though dug into here a little bit, so a little bit of a notch taken out there, but for a brawny, ugly, it's already quite a naturally ugly knife, for a brawny, bruisey knife like this, I think it only adds to its character. It's all good with me. Love that paint starting to come off, good stuff. AUS 8 doesn't need black coating. I don't know why it's got it on there, but it should be just fine without it. In fact, if I wasn't sure that the paint stripper would make all this rubber just start bubbling and peeling off, I'd probably just paint strip the whole thing. Anyway, so the blade did just fine. So it's nice and thick. I'd say it's 3/16 thick. It's got this really sort of swedgy, thick, reinforced tip though, so it is a strong tip. Very, very strong. Maybe until right down. I mean, the last couple of millimeters probably aren't strong, but pretty strong tip. And yeah, the saber grind obviously holds a lot of the all the pressure from the wood when you're battening it goes here. So an absolute tank of a knife, and will do your abusive tasks really, really well. The issue I have with the knife though is that it doesn't do the other knife tasks particularly well at all. Like, not terribly, but it's just so damn average at everything else. So when it comes to actually doing knife jobs, like perhaps just carving wood or just making feather sticks and things like that, it's really thick behind the edge, and I just found that the handle, you feel a little bit like you're using it, and it's just because of this part here, you feel a little bit like it's like dialing the phone with a dialing wand. You're just too far from it. I wish they'd just extend the blade all the way to here. I don't know why, because this is fine. If you're here and the blade stopped here, that little distance there that's basically like having this anyway. It's just your fingers safer. So I'm just not sure why they continue to do it. It's, you know, it's kind of just, it makes the knife way less fun to do fine knife tasks with. So that's kind of my main knock on the knife. It's just not super fun to use. In terms of chopping, yeah, it'll chop, but then chopping's not really a knife job, is it? Battening, yeah, it'll batten like crazy. Not really a knife job. It's a great knife at being an axe, but it's not a particularly good knife at being a knife. Now the handle is, excuse me, the handle is, it's super grippy, absolutely, but I can tell that they're sort of going for, or you know, Falkniven have taken it and run with it, this sort of material here. This is a lot harder and a lot sort of, it's still got a degree of rubberiness to it, but I think they've toned down the checkering. They've got it smooth on the back entirely. And yeah, this is a much more expensive knife, but this wouldn't cost any money to do on this, really. So instead you've got lots of rubber that's a bit too raised that kind of starts to dig into your hands a little bit as well. Again, with a glove, not going anywhere, for sure. And with a glove, probably fine, comfy anyway, but just not super good for bare hands. And also, I mean, I wouldn't have seen the harm in extending the tang out as well through the handle, because that's actually a pretty handy feature. I mean, not that I use it much on this knife, but I reckon on my Falkniven F1, I've used it heaps, the actual hammer pole of the knife. Just at camp and things like that, just for like cracking chestnuts and stuff, I've used it for. So anyway, not, you know, it's not the end of the world, but the handle is a little bit rough, the rubber on it. So that's just my opinion, but I just think what's obviously happened is Falkniven, and I know that Falkniven were inspired by this knife to make this knife, and they've just improved so much on all aspects of it. That's the only thing. The only thing it doesn't improve on is price, because really, you can get this steel in San May, which is a VG1 laying, for still a lot less than this knife, which is more or less laminated VG10 as well. You can get it in VG1, and you can get it in 3V as well, which would be a super tank of a knife. But then the thing is, they still haven't modified any of the things that are kind of wrong with the knife, like making it a little bit thinner behind the edge, because that's really quite thick there, and also just this blank spot here just needs to go. As well, they've not got quite enough weight at the front. If they are sort of saying this is your chopping knife as well, it'll chop just fine, but then you really feel the heft of this Falkniven. Just that extra bit of steel up here just helps you out a little bit on those chopping swings as well. So the Falkniven A1 is definitely kind of one-upped. What I'm saying is, right, if you want a $80 survival knife that will do, you know, withstand heaps of abuse and do an okay job of everything, the SRK is great. But if you have $200 to spend on a knife, or you know, $300 in Australia, spend your $300 on this knife rather than this knife in 3V, because the 3V version of this is about sort of $260 or something like that. So that's where I'd start comparing these. It's unfair to compare them as this is, because this is so cheap compared to this. But just talking about design cues and comparisons and whatnot. So yeah, it's a great knife at being an axe, but not a great knife at being a knife. That's just my impression of it anyway. The sheath is really good. Comes with one of these really great Securex sheaths, which are some of the better sheaths, for, especially given the price point. Much, much better than, I mean, even the Falkniven sheath. I would love for this to hug the knife a little bit more. It doesn't really matter, but it's a similar sort of design, but this one's just a little bit more snappy, you know. Good quality stuff. And I really, really like it. It's good on your belt. It sits nice and low. You can take it off your belt without having to take your belt off due to the button on the back. Really, really good sheath, and I'll always give Cold Steel credit for their great sheaths. You know what's funny? I love Cold Steel as a fixed blade knife company, and this isn't, I wouldn't say that they need to scrap this and get rid of it, but I definitely think it's time for them to perhaps have another look at it and do like an SRK version 2 or something. Maybe add a bit more weight up the end here. You maybe don't even need to, you could probably just do a drop point or something. Don't know about this clippy stuff here. The same dimensions are probably fine. Extend that tang out here, bring the blade back here. In fact, you know what? Just make it pretty much like this knife, and I reckon they'll have a great time, and people will love the shit out of them. People love these as they are, so it's not like I'm doing them any, you know, disservice by sharing my little point of view, but just a few little things would make this a lot better of a knife. Alrighty, this is the Cold Steel SRK versus the Falkniven F1. So the F1's obviously a much shorter 4-inch blade, just blade to blade there. You see that extra 2 inches on the SRK, making it a full 6-inch blade, not cutting edge. The cutting edge is just over 5. So that's the S1 versus that. Similar sized sort of companion or camp belt knife, the SE4. Again, sort of same length handle, just the blade being shorter there. Let's look at it against its sort of more expensive contemporary. Let's go the Falkenhaven A1. So the A1, also in black there, very similar size. The A1 has more blade, more cutting edge, and in my opinion is a slightly more, it's kind of, they've taken this design and they've just added a few little bells and whistles to it to make it better. So that's the A1, and let's finish off with something from its company. Let's go the Cold Steel Trailmaster there. So has a longer handle and obviously a much longer blade. There we go. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my review. I hope you enjoyed my little tests and things. And stay tuned for my next knife testing video, I suppose. I'll see you in the near future, I dare say. Bye.